production. There are about 5,000, more than 5,000 secondary steel units, including 335 DRI plants, 57 electric arc furnaces, 1100 induction furnaces. So it's a big industry, it's a sizable industry, but at the same time, it is a bit fragmented. So therefore, we need to look at it more cautiously. And the clusters are mainly located in Odisha, West Bengal, Chhattisgarh, and on the north, Maharashtra, sorry, on the west, Maharashtra, and then in the north, Punjab. Secondary steel sector also helps to drive circular economy because they use scrap. Right? Some of them use scrap as the feed material for steel making, some of them use DRI as well, and therefore when they are using scrap, we lower carbon emissions by 50 to 60%. Also, by recycling steel from the end-use vehicles and removing the construction waste, it helps to reduce landfills and it has a positive environmental impact. So we should look at it from that point of view as well. And obviously, it drives economic growth in all the sectors, generating employment both direct as well as indirect. So here I wanted to basically be conscious of how important the steel sector, this secondary steel sector, is for our economy. Next, coming to the challenges. Now, these are just challenges that we have mentioned. A few challenges. There may be more finer nuances to these challenges. This is just for discussion purpose. First is, we feel it's a scrap utilization roadblocks, because we have reliance on scrap processing centers, manual dismantling, etc. We have dependence on imports for high grade scrap. Then raw material related hurdles, say for example, if a DRI player needs to procure iron ore, due to market volatilities, prices sometimes they can be volatile. And also because of the economies of scale, that is a very important point for this sector. The bargaining power is a bit on the lesser side. That's also something we need to be cognizant of, and how can we resolve this going forward. High energy costs, because EAF and IEF, they're dependent on energy and we are dependent on grid power. Again, that economy of scale point comes into the picture, that I cannot just set up a captive power plant of 50, 100 megawatt. For that, I need substantial capex. How can we move over that? And technological, the word obsolescence may not be the right word, but in some cases there are legacy systems present. If you want to install new decarbonization systems, or if you want to go for say vertical shaft furnace instead of a rotary kiln, you would need a high amount of capex. So even to drive efficiency, you would need capex, which is currently lacked by the economies of scale. So these are some of the challenges. In my opinion, there can be more or finer nuances to this. Next, here we want to highlight what the industry is already doing under the guidance of Ministry of Steel. Various initiatives have been driving to improve the performance of this sector. For example, award schemes were set up. Then SAMART, like Smart Advanced Manufacturing and Rapid Transformation Hub, SAMART sectors have been set up to help industries adopt to digital technologies, IoT, big data, etc. NISST, they have been given additional grants, and NISST also, they work on the technology aspects as well as they provide programs for upskilling, and Paramjit sir is here, he will speak more on this aspect. Then scrap recycling initiatives. So MSTC and Mahindra, they formed a JV called Sero, which is basically using end of use life vehicles to scrap them and further process them. So such initiatives are already there. Decarbonization efforts. Ministry of Steel is considering this carbon credit trading scheme. So say for example, for a larger player like the Jindal, Tata, SAIL, it will be easy for them to install these carbon capture systems because of the capex involved in the scale of operations. But for a small scale player, it may be difficult for him or her to install that system, but at the same time they have to compete internationally, which is why it is very important to make steel sustainably. So that's another point. And using this carbon credit scheme, which is being thought of by the ministry, they can easily buy the credits. And skill development as well. Ministry has also developed a task force and working on upskill development. This is my last slide. Just a few key themes for deliberation, which may deliberate. That is how to enhance raw material capability. There are already a few scrap exchanges. How to strengthen them, consolidate them. Should we offer incentives to large-scale OEMs so that they can sell directly to the scrap sellers? Should we incentivize long-term linkages or auctions, preferential treatment to secondary steel players in the iron ore mine auctions or to pellet manufacturers? Second point would be access to technology. So recently, Ministry of Steel has again launched the SRTMI initiative, which was an excellent initiative, and we are planning to leverage startups, how to interact with startups. India has a growing startup ecosystem. How can we collaborate with them to solve our current problems? Can we think of setting up a common fund for R&D so that it will be, research will be done on particularly on those issues which are relevant to the secondary steel sector, and the technology can be shared by all? How to mitigate energy cost burden? Can we introduce subsidized or lower rate electricity tariffs for these players? Can we simplify approvals, or setting up common capacities of say thermal plant or renewable energy plants in a common area, and then it can be distributed across locally? And financial access, because of economies of scale, this is a, I feel this is a constraint for the some of the players in this industry. Can we map them into clusters, or they could be funded through a common securitization for working capital requirements, or maybe large scale revolving funds? Can we develop a dedicated national fund for steel decarbonization for the secondary steel sector? I think these are some of the points that we can discuss and deliberate upon. There will be further points, obviously. So that's it from my side. Now I would like to request the speakers. First, sir, I would like to request Sri Paramjeet Singh, Director, National Institute of Secondary Steel Technology, to share his views, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Majumdar. Thank you so much. I think you have touched upon the points what exactly is need to be done in the secondary sector. So if you see, the secondary sector is contributing substantially in the even in the crude steel production as well as in the finished steel production. If you see in crude steel production in 2020-21, the contribution was 37.2% around now, but as on date, as per the JPC provisional data, today the contribution of crude steel is 43%. So there is a substantial increase in the contribution of the secondary sector. And if you see in the finished steel production, the contribution is more than 55%, because because the sector is having stand roll rolling mills also, which are purchasing the materials from the secondary players, as well as the, you can say, the ISPs, and rolling that material and supplying to the industry. There is a big contribution by the sector in the transmission lines. Actually, many units are purchasing the billets from the JSPL or in the sale, and they are rolling into the desired size and supplying to the transmission sector like KC, Jyoti structures. So the sector is contributing significantly, and sector has a strength. I think because I was one of the, you can say, instrumental tool in implementing the energy efficiency technologies from 2008 to 2014 in this sector, and I have seen that adaptability of the sector is very fast. Once they understand it, then they adopt the technology very fast. So what we need the hand holding to make them understand about the technology and how it can be benefited. And we need little bit of, you can say, schemes, which incentive scheme, which can help them to, you can say, adopt that technology and implement that technology. Third thing, what I think is that the sector is basically dependent on more of the contractual manpower. The regular manpower is limited in the sector, and the contractual manpower keep on moving. So we need a regular skilling of the manpower that is lacking somewhere, where NIST can play a role in this. And yesterday we had a discussion with Yogesh Mandhani ji also. So we can play a role, because this institute is developed in 1987 and established in 1987 ministry by the ministry to help the industry to improve their energy efficiency and process efficiency. So we know each and every, you can say, requirement of the sector, and NIST can play a big role in this. And ministry has, you can say, given the additional grant, as you have mentioned in your presentation, for the establishment of testing lab. So we have certified, BIS certified 60 through IS standard testing in our center. We can help the industry. Yesterday I was discussing with other players also that they can send their samples to us, so that because whatever the certification will be provided by the NIST, that will be accepted by the most of the government organizations. And now in December, ministry has given another mandate that, regarding the green steel certification. And I think this can also play a big role for the sector, because as on date, we don't know because we are estimating that but what is the contribution, CO2 contribution by the sector. But by collecting the data through this green steel certification, I think then we will be able to know what is the contribution and what are the areas where we need to focus on. Because we know that one of the areas is the DRI, which is you can say contributing highly in the emissions. But we have seen that because we are testing some of the data in our sheets for the calculation of CO2. So we are seeing that some of the units are doing very well. Their emission is less than 2 in the DRI manufacturing, who are using the very good, you can say, energy efficient technologies, as well as the, you can say, waste heat, utilizing the waste heat recovery. So that in that way, I think that if a sector can be given a little bit of, you can say, hand holding and you can say skill improvisation, so a sector can contribute immensely in the, you can say, nation's development. And another area, what I think that there is a sector can play a role in the import substitution also, because there is a niche requirement of some of the grades which cannot be produced by the bigger sector. The smaller sector can play a role, and in that I think we need the hand holding, and we need to understand the requirement of the cluster, and based on the requirement of the cluster, some of the industry which are, you can say, quite good in adopting the technologies as well as the, you can say, quality, we can take them forward and handhold them and meet the requirement of our country and reduce the import, whatever is desired by the country. This is the basically main points which I want to clear into. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for those details and insights. Next, I would like to request Shri Deepak Bhatnagar, sir, Secretary General, Pellet Manufacturers Association of India, to put forward your views, sir.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning to all our friends from the steel industry. I see that there are some pellet producers also in the audience, and I welcome them wholeheartedly. Now, I just want to share with you that when Mr. Jyotir Scindia ji was our steel minister, he formed a very interesting committee for boosting the growth of secondary steel sector. And our president, Shri Manish Kharbanda, was part of that same committee. And some of the recommendations were very valuable, and I would like to reiterate the same things, that secondary steel sector, as the chair pointed out from FICCI, has the importance of secondary steel is growing every year. I just wanted to highlight that how pellets is playing, iron ore pellets is playing its role in the secondary steel sector, because pellets are used in the DRI as well as secondary steel sector. And DRI, our friends from DRI are here, so they would bear with me that they will continue to increase. The growth story of pellets will increase. For many people who are not directly familiar with pellets, I just wanted to share with you that pellets are stronger. So when we use, as a metallurgist, when I use the word strong, it means it has a higher cold crushing strength. So when you put the pellets in a blast furnace and you put sinter, the sinter is liable to crush. Similarly, if you want to transport sinter over long distances, it is not possible. It crumbles. So pellets is amenable for long distance travel in wagons, trucks, and of course for exports. Pellets lead to higher productivity in blast furnaces. Blast furnaces, a lot of studies has been done that how pellets can improve the productivity of blast furnaces. And a very interesting thing, very few people highlight this in conferences, is that use of pellets reduces the SOx, NOx, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, suspended particulate matter, which we call SPM. Now we come to sintering. Many people ask this question, why not continue with pellets and not sinter? So just want to share with you that the integrated steel plants, like I'm lucky to have joined Bhilai steel plant in 1972. Before that, all the steel plants of SAIL and other RINL on, they were having sintering plants. Now a lot of investments has already sunk in, a few thousand crores. So now the sale cannot do away with that. They have a sintering plant, but slowly new growth will not take place in sintering, but existing will be growing. And why sintering is not suitable for high alumina ores of India is because when you have high alumina, you have to put in a lot of flux, means limestone and dolomite, to make it into slag. There is absolutely no shortage. Sometimes in the newspapers and all it is felt that there is a shortage of pellet and why they are exporting. I just want to reiterate, there is no shortage. Over the years, we have the data for the last 10 years. I don't want to disturb people. One important thing is, pellets export only takes place after domestic demand has been totally satisfied. This is the data to prove that. One important thing for pellets industry to grow is availability of iron ore fines. Yesterday in the afternoon, our chairman of NMDC was here and he highlighted that iron ore fines requirement will increase. You know, the reason is that Mother Nature has provided a lot of iron ore to India. But slowly over the last 5 or 6 years, the fine ore is increasing. Right now it is almost 71% of the iron ore excavated is in the form of fines. When we say fines, in metallurgy we say minus 10 millimeter is fines. And one important thing is that there are many players in the pellet sector which do not have a railway siding. So we have been requesting industry, FICCI also, because FICCI, I am part of their mining committee and raw material committee, that we should have provision for loading into trucks also. Many small plants do not have a railway siding. So this is all from my side, and I wish the secondary steel sector, which is very vibrant, it can compete, not only compete, it is, as the figures our FICCI gentleman told us, that they are increasing. So the secondary steel, the role of secondary steel will increase every year. I am happy to see that Mr. Singh is here. Very few people know that he is heading a very famous institute which is called the National Institute of Secondary Steel Technology. And I think it's almost 15 or 20 years old. Something like, yeah, very, very good. The best part is it is in the area called Mandi Govindgarh, where a large number of small plants are there. So he is contributing by way of providing technical expertise to those small people. And we appreciate your role, sir, that you are doing a good job. Thank you, sir. And thank you for giving me time to FICCI.
Thank you, sir, for that insightful speech. Next, I would like to request Shri Yogesh Mandhani, sir, President, IFA Sustainable Steel Manufacturing Association, to put forward your views.
So, good morning to all. So, this is the most energetic session, I would say, and it is the most heart-touching to us. So, first of all said, well said. Primary and secondary, the primary steel producer, secondary steel producer. Now it's a primary steel producer and a sustainability steel producer. We are a sustainable steel producers now. So एक दौर उनका था, अब एक दौर हमारा है. So really, all said, but it now has to be implemented. I don't want to go in the numbers. Numbers have been declared by all of you. What initiatives has to be taken, what initiatives you are planning has been decided. From the prospect of the industry side and the association side, we are 1,800 members spreaded all across, ruling the economy, moving the economy of the country in the rural region with the greatest number of, highest number of employment creation. These are some of the few points which cannot be ignored. This sector is really stands an important sector for the growth of the country, which Honorable Prime Minister also in his speech mentioned it. Now, coming to the point, in last 10 years, Paramjit Singh ji, you know very well how the technology and the reforms has been done in this sector to produce a quality and most efficient and most affordable steel. So keeping into the mind, the industries came forward, and yesterday only we have signed an MOU with IIT Powai. This is a historical movement for the association, for the members of the secondary steel sector, for such type of MOU wherein we have signed a 5 years roadmap plan for R&D projects. For the first year we have taken a 3 projects. For the 3 projects are one in alignment with the efficiency, one in alignment with the quality, and one in alignment with the green initiative. So the numbers are more, members are more, the producers are more. We are trying to get every cluster together to make a reform, and this reform will help. Now what really mean to us and what we are seeking is, the only thing is that our scrap, we say that this is our scrap because we are being responsible for converting this scrap material to a finished product material. Now this scrap has been given an importance because of the net zero carbon emission, classified as a raw material of zero carbon emission. This raw material has been used by other players also now, and it is increasing. The numbers are going by around 7%, 8%, and in the years to come it would be going by 15%. So what makes this? There is a really need, if any other player wants to become or reduce his carbon emission, he should think on different ways how to capture the carbon, how the other means, because that means are a captive incentive, technologies are not available. The only easiest way is to replace your raw material and use the scrap. We have no problem into this. It's a liberty, everyone can use it. But other way, government also should think on the liberty to be given to the secondary steel in the use of this secondary steel, produced steel, to a government initiative projects. Instead of that, there is a restriction for such type of. So why? When the world is eyeing, sir, I would like to just pinpoint on how this recycled scrap material is being stopped by almost, like Sanjay ji will agree with me, 62 countries have stopped importing, exporting their scrap. We are having a limitation to import the scrap. The availability is not there. So in such circumstances, and the domestic scrap, we all agree that India's growth story has just started last couple of years. So we are not a scrap generating state or country, because the scrap has, the steel has not been used in the decades. We are per capita consumption is very low. So generation of scrap from the domestic would take time. It will take 10 to 15 years. So our dependency is on the import, and see how important this scrap or the recycled material has become to the globe. The European Union has already imposed the CBAM Act. So seeing into this, why not government should think over the secondary steel as a sustainability steel and take ahead in every way. So government initiative projects, definitely we should be given a chance, and some quantum, say 20%, 25% of the steel should be used by this sustainability steel producer. This will really help. Sir, coming to the point of affordability, sir, our steel, whatever we produced, is really affordable. The cost of making steel from this secondary steel route or the sustainable steel route is very low as compared to this. You can see the difference. Paramjit ji, I would really say that you should come up with the certification policy and give the rating to the every steel unit on the basis of the quality, on the basis of the carbon emission. We are ready for it, but the level playing field should be there for the supply of the steel. We are at par in the quality. So those who really say that quality, I would really, with a very thumping this thing, I want to say that no, we are good in quality, and our steel has been supplied to the iconic projects. All the government initiatives, wherever it was possible, we could supply that. The iconic project in Dubai, everywhere we have supplied our this thing. One thing I would like to bring to your notice that Neom City is taking a steel of low carbon emission, and ArcelorMittal is supplying over there for the steel with a 900 kg per ton of carbon per ton of steel carbon emission. Now we are below that, sir. we have classified, we have made the audits. So our companies of the secondary steel are like ranging from 650 to 1800, which is much below than your 5-star rating. So why not help us? मैंने यही कहा कि एक दौर उनका था, एक दौर हमारा है. अब हमारा दौर है, आप हमको हेल्प कीजिए. We will really show that and go hand in hand with the government's initiative, especially the Prime Minister's initiative of carbon reduction in the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for that insightful commentary. Sir, just one question from my side. As per the latest green steel taxonomy produced, so secondary steel producers will also be eligible to be called green steel, right, sir?
The secondary steel are already a green steel. Only it's a
Right,
need of
right.
certification, and I just requested Paramjit ji to come up with a certification, give us the rating. We will be there, sir. Because see the use of scrap and the DRI as a raw material, that helps us to show that the carbon emission is less. Secondly, the renew power. So the transformation of power to the renew power is helping us to get the carbon reduction, and we are ranging around 600 to 650, or maybe like around 1000, between 650 to 1800. Yeah.
Okay, understood, sir. Thank you. Thank you for.
I just want to convey
Yes,
one
please.
thing, that we have already started the registration for the green steel taxonomy from 1st of April, and I think around 20 industries have already registered. So through you, I just want to convey that you can pass on this message to your industry. They can register with us and get the green steel certification as early as
Yes,
possible.
sir, after the communication, those 20 which are there, they are our members only, and they have initiated. And with the yesterday's discussion, I really assure that we are like 1800 people. Almost everyone will be coming to you, and we will bus. But the thing is ki this classification should help us to showcase the government, to showcase the users of the steel, that yeah, this is the material which has been classified, and क्या बोलते हैं ना, सिक्का मुर्तब कर दो कि ये सब हो रहा है, हो रहा है, और ये स्टील यूज कर सकते हैं.
Understood, sir. Understood. Thank you. Next, I would like to call on Sri Sanjay Mehta, sir, President, Material Recycling Association of India, for his views.
Thank you very much, Anvesh, and also thank you to Steel Ministry for inviting MRI, as well as thank you to FICCI. Sir, we have many challenges, and a lot of challenges has been already described by Yogesh Mandani ji. I especially want to highlight, especially to Deloitte people, that these two associations, especially MRA and IFA, they are the backbone of the total industry. Scrap suppliers and steel producers. Scrap suppliers and steel producers. So whatever the issues has been highlighted by Yogesh ji, I will definitely endorse those issues, and I will also touch upon a few more issues that is we are facing in our industry. So raw material security, yeah, we know that raw material has a definitely shortage in India. So government has initiated from last 4 years, given 2.5% custom duty free. We would like to have this assurance, and this security should be keep continue till we become self-sufficient. And that is what government is definitely supporting. But I would like to highlight this point, that raw material security has to be enhanced and given preference. Sir, GST on scrap, government has lost almost more than 2 lakh crore rupees on the bogus billing, right, on the scrap supplying this, because this is being done by the small people, collection, sorting, segregation and everything, supplying everything. So there are not much organized people involved in the segregation, sorting. So at the first hand, at the ground hand, whenever the scrap is being sold, it is being sold as a cash. And our government does not permit more than 10,000 rupees. So everything goes in the cash. So whenever it reaches to the third stage, like to the small collector, like who collects 10 tons, 20 tons per day, there it becomes issues. So he is also buying in cash. He is taking duplicate bill or some bogus billing from the market, and those bills entered into the market as a bogus chain of the total problem, and that becomes problem. We have highlighted to the finance ministry, but there is nothing has been done. I believe personally that raw material, such kind of raw material should be given 0%, and the finish should be charged 18%, or at least 1%, 2% non-moderatable compulsory duties to be charged, which has no set off. I will give you different paper on the this GST on scrap. And yes, on the ELV side also, a lot of ELVs are operating in India, RVSF. They don't have the feedstock to scrap the ELVs, because unorganized sector is still operating very well. So that has to be taken care very well by the MORTH as well as the Steel Ministry to get the right feedstock from the ELV side. Because more than 100 RVCF, more than 125 RVCF are already in India, but not a single RVCF is having a vehicle to dismantle the vehicle. Hardly 10 or 20 vehicles. I am also having 4 RVSF. I don't get more than 10 to 15 vehicles in a month. So those all RVSF are under loss. So there is no incentives from the state government. There is no incentives from the, I mean to say, not lucrative business that provides good opportunity to the RVSF. Because state government is definitely not supporting the central policy of the RVSF. The main point what Yogesh Mandani has highlighted regarding the procurement of steel in government projects, yes, that is a definitely big problem. There is a, as on today also, rupees 7,000 to 9,000 rupees difference per metric ton. Evenly, my TMT, my structural steel is a BIS standard. Primary is also same BIS standard, but the tender clause says that production of route should be from the blast furnace route. IF and EF is not permitted. I will show you many tenders of National Highway, NTPC. Every public procurement policy suggests should be route should be through blast furnace, also basic oxygen furnace. So there is no chance for us to supply the material to, in the government projects. And governments is the major buyer of over 40% of our finished product. So we are not able to supply, and our supply chain is only construction industry, engineering industry. So at least the difference is over 20% in the price. If we get that kind of money, 5%, 10% more also, that will be reinvested in the technology and machineries and everything. That is why our sector is absolutely pushed down from last so many years. Sir, CPCB, our sector under CPCB guidelines, MOEF, under orange category in the central government department. Many state government department has highlighted at like SPCB, State Pollution Control Board, in Maharashtra also is highlighted under red category. That differentiate makes us our life miserable. So that has to be highlighted by that one policy of the central government should run across the country. So in my view, that availability of scrap is definitely not a big challenge. If you go back to the data that 2009-10, we have imported 10 million tons in 9-10. After 15 years also, we are still importing 8 to 9 million tons. In spite of our production has gone doubled. In spite of, but thanks to the government of India, that because of the policies, the arising of the scrap has gone twofold. So that scrap is definitely supporting. So, but we are in control of the imports. I will endorse that we are creating many jobs. We are creating, emitting low carbon. So this sector has to be promoted and given hand support, so that at least our material can be sold at a better price, and green steel should be notified. We are emitting carbon less than 800 kilograms per ton, and 5-star rating is 1.6 tons. So we are better than the 5-star ratings. You can say we are 7-star rating or 8-star rating. So I will request Paramjit that you should classify it for scrap recyclers better rating, better steel in terms of the market. So availability of renewable energy across all small to large steel producers to give level playing field. Many states has reservations on using renewable energy, and there is not central policy governing in the state. Every state has a different mechanism to acquire renewable energy. So that is also biggest challenge in the renewable energy. R&D should be available for secondary steel sector to increase efficiency and bring cost of down on producing steel. Uses of robotic and AI driven technology in sorting, processing of ferrous scrap. I think so importing those kind of technology, the duty free imports should be allowed. Skill training has to be increased at our level, and as well as the promote to be by the government of India. Inclusion of other countries in the list of safe country. So there is one certificate required by the custom authorities while we imports of the ferrous scrap. Those all PSIC pre-inspection certificate is definitely not at all should not be required, because our all ports are having scanners. Radiation scanners are already there. That is increasing our cost. And safe country list is already announced by the Indian government. More than 50 countries are in the safe country, like Europe, UK, USA, and still those countries PSIC is required by the custom. So there is definitely, there is not many things are properly governing between the ports, between the departments, internal departments. So that will bring down our cost. We have given many times this particular request. This cost is more than $2 per ton. Per ton for imports is hardly $350 material. In that $2 per ton for the inspection charges to acquire that certificate. In spite of that, government of India is saying those safe country does not require any PSIC. So government is also requested to procure Guinea steel, which is already definitely, which is highlighted in last 2 days, 3 days. So I think so I'm done with this. Many challenges are there. I will definitely give you, Anvesh, a separate paper along with this. And thank you to Paramjit Singh that he is helping us a lot from last, I have seen in last 10 years that you, and now you are in NISST. So definitely we are excited to see that you, many people apply for the green steel and take the certificate and take the advantage. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for those comments and insights. I have a couple of questions, but that may be done later on. Next, I would like to call Mr. Stefano Pari, Chief Operating Officer, Region APAC and MEA, SMS Group, to please put forward your views.
Thank you very much, and very happy to be here and give my contribution to this forum. I will try to bring to this audience the point of view of a company like SMS that is typically an OEM manufacturer, but also evolving to a solution provider. So the difference between the big situation that you have here in India when we talk about secondary steel industry and other countries is a kind of trend that, from what I have seen and from what I have also heard today from the figures that have been mentioned, is quite different from other big countries. Europe, China, but also US, we have seen a wave of consolidation in which the biggest player have slowly and progressively eaten up the smaller players, and this has generated a certain bunch of inefficiencies. So if we look from our perspective to the contribution of the secondary steel sector in India and to the development that it is giving, I think that the biggest challenge that you have to face is an increase of your efficiency. The differentiation between the large producers and the secondary producers is you have to be faster, efficient, flexible, a low time to market, and the ability to put yourself where the biggest producers are not able to do. So to do this, what can we do to help you to confront with this challenge? We have a lot of solutions. We have a variety of solutions that are helping our customers to increase their efficiency. There are technologies relatively easy and cheap to access, like, for example, hot charging or high-speed continuous casting, digital packages that with a relatively low capex are giving a very high contribution. And the difficulties that we have, it is normally to have access to all the producers that could have interest in developing together with us these things. We have also solutions for new plants, which require not such a high capex as a completely and full integrated steel plant. There are mini mills, compact mills. These are relatively low investments that are affordable also for the secondary steel sector, and that can be promoted in a very quick and high efficient way. And then I like to mention the possibility to use different business models. The typical business models for a plant manufacturer is we sell the plant and we collect immediately the outcome in terms of economics. But there are solutions now like equipment as a service, like software as a service, for example, in which we walk side by side together with our customers. We do not require a big investment from our customers in the beginning, but we sell on performance based. So it is a win-win situation in which we collect our benefit only when our customer collects the return from their investment. Now, from our perspective, what else, in addition to what has been already said in terms of incentives and in terms of what can the government do? Okay, we all know infrastructure, energy, that is okay for sure. But one thing that we see when dealing with the secondary steel sector is the possibility to influence the access to credit. I mean, when confronting with relatively small companies who want to make investments, it is important for us to have a sufficient level of confidence in the securities. So this is something that government can help. Credit insurance, policies in which a company like us, in confronting with investors of this magnitude, can have the confidence to embark in an adventure that is for sure will give its return without issues of any kind. Thank you. That is what I could say.
Thank you, sir, for your comments. Next, I would like to call Mr. Anil Dhawan. He is the Director General of Alloy Steel Producers Association of India to put forward your views, please, sir.
Thank you. Good morning. First of all, I must thank both Ministry of Steel and FICCI. And secondly, taking this topic as a subject for discussions, because I think secondary sector per se, the definition itself gives a negative connotation, primary and secondary. And the way the importance has been now explained by almost everybody from the ministry and everybody, the contribution of this sector comes to almost 50%. So 50-50. It has come a long way. It has its own pitfalls, and it has, I think, more of advantages. While I appreciate Madhani Saab's exposition, let me introduce, I am Anil Dhawan, representing alloy steel producers of the country, and we represent almost 100% capacity existing in the country for producing alloy steels. Alloy and stainless steels included, because GSL is also our member. Now, while there has been a discussion on the construction segment steel, let me tell you, we represent, and this is perhaps a very important revelation here, highest quality producers in the country are in this group. They cater to most strategic sectors. And what are they? And I'm very happy to say, some of the members are present here. SAIL, one of the primary producers of alloy steel, they are here today, their representatives are. Mukunds, Kalyani, and we have 20 people, 20 members including JSW, JSPL. So every single alloy steel producer in the country, stainless steel, is a member with ASPA, alloy steel producers, and we have a capacity existing between 12 to 14 million tons of pure alloy steel production, and about 5 to 6 million tons of stainless steel, including flat. It gives a picture of 20 million tons of highest quality alloy steel production in the country. And having committed ourselves, our members have committed to the PLI scheme, thanks to MECON. MECON has been doing a great help to us in formulating the policies, and because basically the PLI scheme had come for specialty steel, background was alloy steel. These 20 members producing alloy steels are basically catering to auto sector, defense, aerospace, nuclear, and some strategic requirements of even the what is called as railways and aerospace recently. Now, why I am talking about is, while we have with us pellet manufacturers, DRI manufacturers, recycling manufacturers, we are converting them, even iron ore to DRI. Mr. Kashiva is not there, I'm missing him. We are converting them into the highest value product, and that is the spread of the secondary sector, if you call it a secondary sector. Now, having said so, this sector has been primarily in the private sector all through. These capacities started much earlier and has grown into something and catered to an industry which was primarily importing. And therefore, import substitution has happened here. Today, auto sector is having more than 95% indigenization. Thanks to Mr. Paramjit Singh, he was earlier industrial advisor in Ministry of Steel, and he has been piloting. The import substitution has come through secondary sector. Import substitution has come major from these alloy steel producers, because those which was not being produced in the country was being, so that has gone into this. Next, we were talking about the green steel in the last. I think this sector, these alloy steel producers are the low-hanging fruits. They do not have much of an issue because they are through EAF route. They use a lot of renewable energy, and I think most of them are 5-star already. Not only that, we're talking about the efficiency. The alloy steel producers have already offered green steel to the auto sector without any extra cost. And that was in the last meeting with Shyam and ECMA. Now, that is something, what is happening in the secondary sector, the so-called secondary sector, steel producers, and I think there will have to be some looking. I'm grateful earlier the definition was only integrated steel and non-integrated steel. Now it is primary and secondary. I think even secondary, I was going through one of the international definitions. Primary steel is melt and pour. That's all, full stop. Therefore, steel making in the country today is primarily primary steel. So this, though we are sitting in the secondary stage. Having said so, it does not mean that the problems of those integrated bulk producers are same as the smaller ones. I am very happy to see your presentation by the Deloitte. I think one of the, most of the issues you did cover, but one of the issues which you have to cover it is, alloy steels are the most customized. Now that is inverted commas, highly customized products to be produced only against an order, unlike the rest where you can produce and sell. Now that is going to change, that is changing the whole scenario, sir, for the alloy steel producers. Now, therefore, the other things which you mentioned about MOQ, even investment, bringing in more capacities, that they are automatically flowing, and I am very happy to state that while the Ministry of Steel has started looking at secondary sector in a different lens for the last few years, in fact, I must compliment Ministry of Steel had created a platform for secondary steel separately than the primary steel, which needs to be revived once again to bring the focus of the secondary sector steel producer. Now, what are the problems, challenges? I think I'll say there are few. Scrap, I agree with Mr. Mehta, should not be an issue if the scrappage policy is implemented in its right spirit. And that is where I think everybody, all of us will agree that that is a challenge to be done. It's a good cause for the country as well as for everybody. And scrap, very rightly mentioned, few years ago, same quantum is imported. Today, that means the rest of the scrap is now being generated. I think hand holding has to be done there with the scrap generating or scrap accumulating industry to bring a structure I would not be surprised that the linkages, backward linkages, like in case of an integrated steel plant, there is a mine integrated. Perhaps we may have to think of creating a scheme or a system where an alloy steel producer or a secondary steel producer, you call it, gets integrated with a scrap processing unit. It will be, I think Tata took some cue on this. Now, this is one. Most of our people do not have either the iron ore mines, nor do they have the cocoa ones. Therefore, raw materials, though is an issue, but it is a challenge which can be easily taken care of with the intervention of the government and other agencies. This is a manageable thing. Renewable energy is something which will be required. We are a power intensive. Electric arc furnaces, including induction furnaces, they require good energy. I think a good thrust from the government would be required to do hand-holding to bring down our carbon footprint ultimately through this sector. Hydrogen is a far-fetched technology as well as the costing. The Honorable Secretary also mentioned it's a very costly affair. But if this is going to be the route, we must ensure that the capacities do come in this area. Now, that is one. Secondly, sir, PLI scheme I was mentioning. It has come a long way. PLI 1, PLI 1.1. Most of our members have participated. Some of them have even given production. So we would be driving and we would be driven by the PLI scheme, but we are waiting for a PLI 2 specifically for auto grades and defense grades. One point on the quality. Sir, we are doing a lot from the ministry and the BIS on QCOs and standardization. Let me share with you, defense grades are not covered by BIS. And therefore, even though there is a Atmanirbhar message for defense production, Defense Ministry has taken, we must look at it from FICCI. FICCI has a defense committee. Ministry of Steel has a area where they are putting thrust on it. We must get the BIS standardization for defense grades so that the capacity utilization, I forgot to mention, though we have that much of a capacity utilization of this industry is 65%. Now, it has an advantage, disadvantage. Advantage can be export, advantage can be diversification, advantage can be more of green steel production. But the linkages for the demand and import substitution through BIS certifications is must. Congratulations to Mr. Paramjit Singh having got that order from the ministry for giving certificates. I think a campaign will have to be taken, initiative other. I am also a member, board member of NISST, and they are doing a wonderful job in circumstances that we take a campaign to call them and register rather than waiting for them to lie under a tree to wait for the fruit. Because it is in our interest to project in the world that we have sufficient capacity for green steel production. Last, sir, smaller units, they do not have any good capital for R&D. I think he is also mentioned, we'll have to improve. The changing need of the customers, EV is coming very fast. Penetration of EV in next 3-4 years will be as high as 26%. Now, if that be so, you will need investment. If decarbonization has to happen, how these small units, unlike the big ones, will get into in-depth and who will help them with easy financing, which I think most of my colleagues have said, will have to be done. And I think we have Economic Advisors Office in the Ministry of Steel, and all would like to do something where they will contribute, but some hand-holding either in the form of a scheme or an R&D function. See, let me tell you, perhaps main producers, they may get some fund from JPC. They have a body called JPC which supports and sustains them. JPC also sustains the NIST, but JPC does not sustain or extend its arm to the secondary sector per se. Therefore, we will have to have either a similar body or a scheme so that a hand-holding is done on R&D front in our schemes. A lot of work has been done in the last 4 years on R&D in the Ministry of Steel, but perhaps that has been taken more to the DRI industry, or maybe, I don't know, but Nagar Saab, in pellets, whether you could get any R&D scheme. But alloy steel producers are looking at it as a help. I think I have given all good things so far. There
Yes,
has
sir.
been positives only, negatives are few.
Sure, sure.
There would always be time to discuss.
Thank you, sir.
further.
Thank you for your comments. I would also like to, open the forum for discussion. If someone has any recommendation to make, or any queries, or any point that we can brainstorm upon, maybe we can have a couple of those. Yes, please, sir.
Hello. Yeah. Thank you, sir. Myself is Pramod Shinde. I represent Material Recycling Association of India. I would like to thank you so much for giving us an opportunity for discussion. During the initial discussion, we would like to make 2 points over here. That you did mention about the data collection, which is going to be an important role to play in the secondary market. Not only the secondary steel, as well entire steel industry. JPC is, as sir has rightly said, JPC is collecting data for the primary producers, but there is still lot of works to be done for the secondary sectors for the data collection. We are on behalf of MRI, maybe IFA, we like to jointly take some efforts under the guidance of NIST as well as JPC to do some kind of more data collection is required. Then only that our sectors will give a more clarity, more for the policy making, and then we get more support from the government. So we will be definitely taking your, seeking your help to get more data collections work. That's another one important point I would like to mention about that, the cluster development. The cluster development is really going to be playing the existing clusters like Jalna, or could be the Wada in Maharashtra. You take the cases where earlier JPC as well as this NIST used to conduct the regular workshop for the energy efficiency work. Such kind of workshops has been stopped now. So we can do regular workshops along with for this such kind of clusters development to make them more responsible, create more awareness as well as the best practices. Like we did in MRI in Akkam, we have done some near about 58 plant visit as well as 10 Akkam programs. So similar can be done for the upliftment for these secondary steel sectors. And that clusters development, sir, R&D is also playing an important role. So we really secondary steel up till now that the NIST, the SRTMI fund was going towards the primary players. Now we are really looking forward to have such kind of R&D funding allocations to be done for the secondary steel as well. This is my submissions on behalf of MRA. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much. And regarding R&D, you would just like to mention, Ministry of Steel has recently relaunched the SRTMI. So they have 3 modes: open innovation, startups. So that is primarily aimed at helping the relatively smaller players who can't fund their own R&D to help them achieve those desired objectives through a common pool. So MOS will be providing some funds and the steel producers will be providing some.
So
that's
such kind of efforts we require. Definitely you need to, secondary steel sectors, all these relevant associations needs to be taken consideration while making the announcement and all. Like sir has recently said that.
Sir, you are required to
If
write
you
to the
people
Ministry
can
of
share
Steel.
us the problem statement of your, you can say where the R&D need to be done. I think NIST can take a lead in that case.
Okay, sir.
You just let us know the problem.
Certainly, we
statement.
will be submitting.
Right.
Sir, definitely.
Sir, in nutshell, all other supports and initiatives are welcomed. But the only point is that we want a level playing field for our produced steel. If done, we can manage everything. R&D, we are taking care, we are doing innovation. Yeah, SMS is there here. We have done lot of synergy with them, our sector. So everything is possible, sir. Please take it as a very serious note that a level playing field for our steel produced to be given. Thank you.
And it is request from the Ministry of Steel that with respect to the financing issues, with respect of the cluster development, you are requested to write to the Ministry of Steel so that we can see what can be done in this regard. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Sir, thank you.
That's an excellent idea, sir. If anyone else has any point to make, any recommendation, any suggestion, or yes, ma'am, please.
Hi, my name is Kinchu. I'm with Climate Catalyst. We work on the policy side on steel decarbonization. I was just curious to hear if there's been any attempt on like pooling RE demand from secondary steel clusters, and then like buying equity in a group captive model. Was just curious to know if that's a solution that's come up or has been tried, and whether that's something that the clusters would be sort of open to, because we were hoping to sort of commission some research on this, so it would be great to hear from panelists here what they think of this.
Anyone would like to take this question? Her point is, can we go for pooling RE, renewable energy demand? So, because like I mentioned in my slide, we do not have economies of scale sometimes. So, suppose if I have to install a 100 megawatt solar power plant, maybe 4 or 5 players, or like you said, sir, a cluster can fund this, exactly. And then it can be spread to everyone. Can that be a possible solution? She is asking as a forum. If someone can respond to that or has any ideas related to that.
I think association can play a role in that.
So, in case of this, I would like to say that in Maharashtra, there is a very classical example wherein the Jalna cluster has come up with the total requirement of the power was around 600 to 700 megawatt, and they came up with, to the government of Maharashtra. The government of Maharashtra has a separate wing for renew power, and that is called Mahapreet. The company called Mahapreet. It is initiative of government of Maharashtra. So they have signed a MOU with them, and 80% of the power RTC round the clock would be supplied to these units of the Jalna cluster, and it may take 1.5 years or 1 year to go into this, but the MOU has been signed. So yeah, secondary steel are coming together as a cluster and getting it done. I would really, with this platform, I would really seek government to promote such type of activities done in Jalna in Maharashtra.
I think in this case, cluster level power requirement, if we can do a study, yes, and how much is being RE used, and how the balance can be, you can say, supplemented by the RE, that can help to.
Agree with you, sir. Yeah. Agree with you. Very valid point. Anyone
Excuse
else
me?
has a point?
Yeah.
Yes, sir, please.
Good morning. I am Minesh Dwivedi from Amalgam Steel.
Sir, slightly louder, please.
I am Minesh Dwivedi from Amalgam Steel. One important point which I would like to discuss here, and even request all the people here, government authorities and everybody, that when the secondary steel player actually putting any mill or making any products, they have to go from one shop to another shop to get approvals. So why the government, and when we are going to the contractor or any government agencies, that the name recommended in the project is like JSPL, SAIL, Tata and RNL, nothing more than that. So why the approval is, why the contract or the tenders are actually highlighting those names? They should highlight the specification. If any Indian companies, whether it is secondary, primary or anything, if they are matching the standard, they should be given these things. The basic condition should be the manufacturing has to be have in India, and the second thing is that they can test the material, whether the material is as per standards or not. If that is as per standard, then it is, whether it is SAIL, RNL or any company, then the whole level, that what Yogesh Mandani ji is saying, the level playing field will come automatically, and we will also able to do our R&D, and we will become more efficient also, because we are very agile and nimble footed. We would like to do very quick adoption of new technology and everything, but only thing, we are not getting support from these kind of things, because when we are going to meet some government agencies or big contractor, they are just saying that this is written in the paper. So that should be taken care, that only government can do it, help us.
Agree, very valid point, sir. Next, so I think if anyone else has any questions, or I would request sir to give the comments. Keynote address by Sri S.K. Verma, sir, Chairman and Managing Director, MECON. Sir, if you would. If anyone else has any questions, we would be happy to hear those as well. If yes, please. Yes, please use that mic. Yes.
Hello. So this is Shubham from CRU Group. So I would like to just have, thoughts on like some of our DRI producers are like you mainly use coal-based DRI in.
Thank you. For producing steel, and in terms of like arc furnaces for the electricity, they need to again be dependent on the grid source electricity, which is again coal dominant in India. So how do you see, or how do we overcome this challenge in terms of reducing the carbon footprints which are produced from coal-based DRI basically?
I think the solution is, I think Madam has given the solution to you, that you can use the maximum of RE to reduce your emission in that case.
And also another point could be, if we are speaking in terms of pooling, see, shaft furnaces may be expensive. Coal-based DRI, we can think of using, say coal gas. Say coal gasification plants may be set up for clusters, and we can pool those facilities. Such kind of initiatives can also be thought of. Regarding scrap, I had one question to the wider forum in general, or to Sir Sanjay Mehta sir, you are the president of MRAI. Sir, why can't you mention one very important point, that unorganized scrap collectors. Sir, in Brazil, what they're doing is they have integrated them into the system. The unorganized scrap collectors, they are issuing certificates, they are collecting the scrap. Can we think of something similar in India? If we can think of what can be the challenges, what can be the opportunities, if anyone can shed a light, sir, first of all, if you can shed some light.
Does that actually, that idea, we can discuss and bring out a kind of document and see that what kind of results will come. But it's a really good idea from your side. Let us discuss together on this.
Sure, sir. Sure. Anyone else has any suggestion, queries, points? Okay. Then I would request the keynote address by Shri S.K. Verma, sir, Chairman and Managing Director, MECON. Please, sir.
Good morning. It's great hearing from all stalwarts of secondary steel sector. So there is no denial that the field should be level. If it is not level, there is some lack of confidence, which I will urge you to really stand up and do the corrective measures. Very important point which emerged is in discussion, because I don't think there is a sort of keynote address which is required on this subject. One is cluster development. Now, since you have associations and all, and secondary steel sector is more or less in 2-3 states in a big way. If that can be done, I think the laboratories for testing, even the research, if you want to do something, or the renewable energy which Madam has raised, these all things can be on a roadmap. Individually, it will be very difficult to do. Even for pellet, my opinion is that very small pellet plants are not very viable units. So maybe if the pellet units are bigger, it makes more sense, and viability will come in. Secondly, there is one point which struck to me, that is, you guys are willing to upgrade your technology. So basically you will need more trained manpower. So I think Mr. Paramjit has a big role providing that. And one more institute which I heard is Biju Patnaik or in Odisha. These are 2 units which has to give skilled manpower. That is something which you cannot go in a very unorganized manner if you are asking for a level field. So those kind of thing. Secondly, I don't want to mention it, but nobody asked about the quality of coal. So as if that's not a problem. Most of you are in coal-based DRI. You are not facing any problem in coal. Nothing.
Definitely lowest coal is required. Lowest coal is required.
DRI plant.
Sir,
Definitely the Indian coal is not, as far as the quality is concerned, not going 100% in the coal DRI plant. We are dependent on import, and we blend this import coal with the indigenous coal and make our costing a viable costing and use that.
Okay.
So that is the thing which every DRI plant in our sector, secondary sector, do the practices.
Well, I am told by some of you only that that is also a big concern, because they are not even getting the third grade, fourth grade, they are getting with the worst grade possible. And there is no preferential quota for getting at least the best of the non-cooking coal available in the country. Something probably need to be done.
Sir.
The one more issue was not raised by you, because my understanding is out of, say, 43 million ton, 43%, and absolute term around 50-60 ton. 10 ton is coming from blast furnace route from secondary steel sector.
Yes, sir. I think you have made a very right observation,
So
sir.
that is not being represented here, it seems.
No, it is, sir.
Yeah.
Our units are there. Which
So
are,
let me congratulate you on that segment. That is one segment probably doing at least in the area which I have seen. I would not like to comment for downstream. The primary side is giving run. Primary side means primary iron making, which we call. Primary side of iron making is giving a very, very tough competition to even integrated steel players. And there is, not in terms of anything, you talk about efficiency, you talk about fuel efficiency, you talk about manpower rationalization, adoption of technology. They are probably leading the lot. So, and one more point which I have not heard any one of you talking. None of you are thinking of adopting a Konark-based steel making and adding one blast furnace, so that you have one smelter unit which can probably take care of any kind of metallics. Konark can take 100% solid and 100% metal. That will improve a lot of economics in your sector. Besides the point which he raised very emphatically, that is written that BF route or something like that, we need to really introspect on this, rather than there is an element of doubt that the secondary refining is a bit absent in secondary sector. So is it such an investment cost that you cannot put ladle furnace or some vacuum degasser in your system? Because nobody can say anything for the blast furnace. But refining, if you have only say electric arc furnace, and how emphatically you can keep on telling that I produce everything correct. We all are practical people. We know that you need to correct them. And nobody can say that you will get scrap which is absolutely measured and there is no deviation. So probably that is something which we need to really think about, that will bring credibility into the system. It is really very heartening to know. I thank you, Mr. Dhawan. So we all know these figures, but when you said it emphatically, 20 million ton coming from secondary steel sector, to one of the most critical, ये आपका नाक है basically. Well, you did not talk about another 30 million ton, how they are producing and what they are producing. So I expected that also from you. That will give you true picture and corrective action. Because we need to do something to bring credibility and level playing field in a true manner. Nobody can deny that. If you are good, nobody can deny you for long. So nobody is asking about those 20 million ton. They are taken on platter on hand and given all kind of blessings. So what I will suggest you, let's introspect, and in a way we have almost understood your sentiment, and 80% of the problem will be solved if you have a real cluster and some cooperation coming from each other. I am representing ministry, but I'm not a part of ministry in absolute term. But ministry can definitely, I can make that much, at least can really look into it. And if you are making some kind of viable cluster, so that will be something which will be welcomed by government, let's say, is something which we all want that. One question to Mr. Deepak Bhatnagar. Still, we find that the pellet plant capacity and its utilization is very, it's widened. Whereas, when I am talking to people, there is shortage of pellet. नहीं सर, आप अभी RINL से बात कीजिए, आपका 1 मिलियन 2 मिलियन तो वो खरीद लेगा. Let me tell you, offhand बता रहा हूँ मैं. So, if you can produce pellet, secondly, let's not have this misconception that pellet is good and sinter plant is bad. Sinter, if you are producing and putting in the same plant, it is a fantastic raw material. And as an iron maker, I will prefer to go with sinter plant if I am not transporting it.
Correct. That's the thing.
Secondly, if I have large material, I am not going to grind it and make pellet. So pellet comes when it is fine material, or you have to beneficiate.
Correct. That's it.
Thirdly, somehow there is a problem which we all need to look into from pellet point of view, that in India somehow we are not able to produce basic grade pellet.
Right.
So all the advantage come when with pellet you have not to charge flux and additive. So we are very open on that, Mr. Bhatnagar, and we are ready to discuss and probably try to resolve this.
Sure.
But we need to do something.
Yes, it's true.
The one thing which I have seen in 1 or 2 pellet plants, that the flux addition capacity is very low. The one is that your material is not suitable for becoming basic. That's okay. But probably from 0.6, if you can move to 1 or 1.2, that will solve a lot of problem.
That's true.
So my suggestion would be to you, because you are representing such a large group. Once there is some shortage of raw material, at least for this time and for coming some time.
Yeah.
Pellet is required, and more so if you can have some high basicity pellet
Yes.
in the market. We can go on talking, but I just touch upon few points which you, Yogesh ji has mentioned. Rural India, that's absolutely wonderful. Still we have whatever we say 100 kg, rural India is not even 20 kg. So if we are able to look into their local demand, I think they will be your biggest receptor. Let government not do anything, but rural India will do for you. And there is a lot of scope. if my memory serves, it is not even 20 kg today. And the market today will take your material. Scrap, if you are depending too much on scrap, although Sanjay ji he gave a lot of confidence, it is not a matter of worry. But I have been going through all these reports. I still feel I must congratulate secondary steel sector that we have grown by around 10% for last 4 years. And in these 4 years, you have moved from 37 to 43, means you have moved more than 10%. So, but you are scrap dependent still. I think metallics, you have to think beyond scrap. Otherwise, this kind of growth is not foreseen, at least by us. We are not God, but we are not able to really agree with you that this is not a problem. So I wanted to make it clear to you. Paramjit Sahab, manpower. And yes, that is a great thing Mr. Paramjit is doing. If he is able to do that green steel certification, that will solve a lot of problem, maybe a little bit of credibility in the system also. Import substitution, Dhawan Sahab ने बताया ही है. Rural India, scrap, raw material security. Steel firm, secondary. That's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your insights. In the interest of time, I think the other discussions can be taken offline. I would request Sri Sanjay Mehta, sir, for a brief concluding remarks and vote of thanks.
Thank you very much, Anvesh ji. District dignitaries, industry leaders and stakeholders, I extend my sincere thanks for your active participation in today's roundtable on the secondary steel sector, the way forward of India Steel 2025. We sincerely thank Sri Anvesh Majumdar ji for setting up the contest and moderating today's session by Deloitte. A special thanks to Sri S.K. Verma ji for his keynote speaker and Rajkumar ji, Director of Steel Ministries, provided deep insights into the key challenges by everyone and opportunities for the sector. Priority areas identified including technology, adoption, financial access, skill, scrap, shortage and key issues, sustainability. These themes will definitely help and shape future policies and strategies. It is good to note that Ministry is very well aware of all the issues, and definitely I have seen it in last 10 years, they are supporting secondary sector. We need to definitely put forward our issues aggressively again and again, and definitely in times to come, they will give 100% support to us. So, and S.K. Verma ji has taken all the leads and deliberating every issues in detail. So I will not go back again and discuss on these issues which we have already discussed. We really sincerely appreciate the Ministry of Steel and all contributors for their continued support. We are committed to working with all the stakeholders to translate today's insights into tangible actions in times to come. Thank you very much.
वो बोतल का पानी का बोतल वहाँ पे है, देख फटाफट लगा।
भाई एक और लाना ग्लास, एक और लाना। हाँ चलेगा ग्लास। करना है।
Are we good to go? Is someone going to give us a cue? Can we start? Okay. Just let me know whenever.
So you wanted to tell me, let me tell you about the change. Okay, no. All of these people are here in place to your left or right, but they are all
SBI?
here.
I just met Munish Chandana from
Yes.
SBI. He's not on this.
No, he's not in the list. He was a participant. If you want, you can mention his name as well.
But Enviro?
Alok Chand is here. He's already here. Then instead of Abrindra Prakash, you can mention Ashwani Kumar.
Back to Ashwani Kumar. Sorry. Wretched thing is just too... Okay, I'll do that, no problem.
It's fine, I'll be here so that there's no confusion. He's already here. Mangesh Soman. It's written in the schedule.
Yeah, he's there. Subodh is there. Alok Chand.
Alok Chand is there, yeah. Deepak Agarwal.
He's there.
He's there.
Left.
And Sanjay Jain is there as well.
Yeah.
And you've got an extra one.
Yeah, you might want to add Manish Chandana.
He's and Rohit.
Rohit, you can answer. All these were participants. Ministry asked us to, treat
Okay,
them
but
as
we
speakers.
don't.
So these are
Manish. SBI. Rohit is from. Where is he from?
India ratings.
Fitch.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
One
and
more thing.
One Ashwini Kumar.
Ashwini.
He's economic advisor.
Yeah.
Ministry.
JS level, yeah. Economic advisor is fine.
Yeah.
Ministry of Steel.
Okay. Thanks.
I think that's it. You did change for Arpan Gupta and other things, I believe. I
Arpan Gupta
sorted.
is here,
Yes,
no?
yes, he's here. Everyone's here.
Okay. Just let me know when
Alright.
when we can start, huh?
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. I think you can start.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Can we all find seats and settle down, please? Welcome to the roundtable discussion on investing in steel, bridging gaps and forging financial success. Firstly, I want to thank you all. You are the brave ones, the persistent ones, the patient ones who actually turned up on a Saturday afternoon on day 3 of a 3-day event. Clearly, your commitment to green steel is showing. My name is Pradeep Tarakan, and I am Director for Energy Transition at the Asian Development Bank. We will spend the next 75 minutes or so focusing on the financing needs of the green or sustainable steel sector in India and discussing ways to access the amount of capital that is needed and finding ways to direct that capital effectively and efficiently to both the large steel sector and the secondary steel sector. Just a few context-setting remarks from me before we turn to our really exciting panel. According to one of the studies recently published by the Center for Energy, Environment and Water, just net zero achievement for the existing steel plants in India by 2050 will need about $283 billion. That's CapEx, and OpEx amounts could be as much as $8.8 billion. Now, that's a lot of money to find. And as we know, while India is financing a lot in the clean energy space, most of it is going towards renewables, which with long-term PPAs, no market risk, is going towards EVs, which have quick payback periods, and it goes to waste to energy increasingly, where if you get it right, again, you've got quick payback periods. When you talk about transition finance, going from green to brown, it is a challenge. We don't have taxonomies, we don't have actors who are willing to step up, technology risks abound, and the actors can be quite fragmented. And so in the world of financing, when we say we need financing, we also say we need the right policy to go along with it. You can't talk about financing without policy. So with that in mind, let me turn to our first set of speakers. Really pleased to have with us Ms. Neha Verma, who is Director at the Ministry of Steel. And I'd like to welcome her and to perhaps give us a few thoughts on where the Ministry of Steel is in terms of enabling the financing that's needed in the sector. Nehaji, over to you.
Thank you so much. A very good afternoon to all the delegates present here, the industry leaders, as well as esteemed speakers on the dais. I warmly welcome you all to this session, the roundtable on financing needs of India and how do we meet it, a theme that is very vital to India right now as it's trying to be a 5 trillion economy, a developed economy soon. But at the core of this development lies innovation and sustainability. We have already seen a double-digit growth since last many years, and we are slated for even more. We are going to be 300 million ton by 2030. But however, this next growth story phase has to be written with sustainability and innovation at the core. As we transition from this carbon intensive and conventional steel industry to a modern one, to smarter, greener, digitally enabled advanced steel production, we need massive investments, and not just in few areas but across the whole value chain. First and foremost, importantly, it is the decarbonization and green steel transition which draws lot of investment. Ministry of Steel has already drawn a roadmap for this transition, and what we see that till in a short term, 2030, we need levers like energy efficiency and renewable energy to bring us down. And because the diffusion rate of even energy efficiency solutions is very low in the industry, especially in secondary steel sector, and the diffusion rate would be only up to 30 to 40%, as well as the penetration of renewable energy is only 7% across the whole steel sector. So even with these low-hanging fruits, we need lot of investment, capex investment. Although these both areas are value accretive in long term, but for the initial nudge, we need to provide fundings, maybe in form of interest subvention or risk or some kind of a risk guarantee schemes, etc. Next, we are looking forward towards green hydrogen and CCUS technologies for greening the sector. However, as we all know, we have been discussing it multiple times, green hydrogen comes at a huge cost. And CCUS solutions are also not commercially viable right now. So adoption of these technologies also draws a lot of money. Similar is the case with the biochar. So we have done a small study and we have figured out, Mr. Pradeep has just quoted what CW mentioned for a net zero target, but we are looking at short term, we are looking at a realistic target. We want to bring down emissions by 17% by 2030, and just for that we need $36 billion of investment just for the decarbonization. Next, we need a lot of money for raw material security. As we are increasing our capacity for steel production, we are consuming more and more available iron ore, our seams are getting lower, and the quality of iron ore which is available for us is degrading. Hence, we need to invest in beneficiation and pelletization capacity. Also, for increasing the circular economy effects, we need modern and better efficient scrap collection and processing industry as well. Next, I draw your attention towards the need of R&D and innovation in the steel sector. Not just the adoption of decarbonization technologies, but to evolve new technologies, evolve new solutions so that we can decarbonize at a much faster rate. We need lot of R&D investments. Apart from this, we need research in digitalization, AI automation. We need research for advanced steel production. We also are looking towards operational excellence and indigenization of capital good manufacturing in India, which draws a lot of money. So we have to have a very strong ecosystem to foster this innovation. Fifth, we are also looking, fourth, we are looking at digital transformation, adoption of already existing digital technologies, be it digital twins or using AI for automation, for process optimization or predictive maintenance. Talking about our secondary steel industries, they operate at very thin margins and have very low capacity to invest into larger and costlier technologies. Steel is a very capital intensive industry and we need big investments everywhere. So they also are need a lot of support in terms of investment for both infrastructure development and modernization. We are also looking towards strengthening of our logistics and infrastructures. We need more and more coal washeries to reduce our import dependence for coal. We want slurry pipelines for better transportation of our raw materials, and there are other modes of transport we want to invest in. So in a nutshell, as India expands, there is a huge requirement of finances and investment, and there are so many challenges which lie ahead of us. Availability of affordable capital is of course the greatest one. Then there's also risk perception around the emerging technologies. We are not even aware of the bankable green projects, and there is an absence of standardized technologies for assessing and monitoring the decarbonization projects. These are just few of the challenges that lie ahead of us. But I would just like to tell you that Ministry of Steel has been sharpening its focus towards providing finance to the steel sector. As you all know, our production-linked incentive scheme has infused, is about to infuse, has already done a part of it and is still in the process of infusing in total of 6,322 crores in the economy, which will have a multiplier effect of almost 7 times, and which will see almost 7 times investment from the steel industry. This is to modernize our capabilities of advanced steel production and reduce our import dependence. Further, Ministry of Steel has been supporting decarbonization efforts. We have drafted a national mission on green steel where we are proposing to help steel producers go for green steel transition by providing them a support of about 14,000 crore rupees. And this is a work in progress. Indirectly, we are also trying to create markets for green steel, which will again draw investments in the steel sector for a cleaner and greener steel production through green steel public procurement policy. We are trying to get some mandates for public procurement. Ministry of New and Renewable Energy has come up with National Green Hydrogen Mission. This is also supporting us with about 455 crores, that's around $53 million, and it's supporting pilot projects. We have already launched 7 pilot projects in green hydrogen in the country. On the R&D front, we have recently renewed and re-strengthened our SRTMI, which is Steel Research Technology Mission of India, which is a collaborative initiative between the industry, academia, and the ministry. Through this platform, we are supporting R&D projects, innovation, technology innovation, as well as we are also supporting startups through funding. The funding ranges from 60 to 100% of the project cost, and this is a recently launched initiative in March. So that is another way we are trying to infuse finance into the steel sector. R&D scheme of ministry has already been running since many years and is also supporting research and innovation landscape. So in a nutshell, ministry is taking lots of initiatives, but we need to do much, much more. We need greener investments, we need options like blended finance, sustainability linked bonds, etc. And more importantly, first of all, we need to have a much, much stronger relationship, much, much stronger collaboration between government, financial institutes, and the industry. So I'm very, very hopeful that this kind of a forum will provide an impetus to our thinking on how finance can be provided to Indian steel sector, how it can be infused into steel sector, and perhaps try to answer some of the questions like how can we bridge the gap which we have just outlined, what are the innovative instruments and financial models that can bring in the capital for the bigger players as well as for the startups. We should also focus on startups as well as secondary steel industries. And how can we ensure the investment which we get in is de-risked, is catalytic and inclusive, again including secondary steel sector. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you for participating in this session. With this context, I hand over my back to Pradeep Thakran, and I really encourage you to very, very actively engage in the discussion here, sharing your perspective, giving us your enriching insights as well as posing questions to us, so that we, the Ministry of Steel, can also help make better policies. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I think I really appreciate the extensive overview of the Government of India's programs and thrust areas. It really covers sort of a best practice list in terms of both market-based approaches, but also regulatory approaches. One of the measures that was mentioned was the idea of public procurement and green procurement and how that can really change markets. So I think that's a nice segue to the next speaker. I'd like to invite my colleague, Mr. Jeff Taylor. He is Deputy Director General, Procurement, Portfolio and Financial Management at the Asian Development Bank and serves as ADB's Chief Procurement Officer. So just for your information, ADB is a multilateral development bank. We did about $40 billion of lending last year, 23 billion of which was our own funding, the rest being co-financed from our partners. So we are a large procurer of goods and services through our borrowers, of course. And so, Jeff, if you could speak to the MDB's role in this space. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rudy. Yeah, I'm Jeff Taylor. My main job at ADB is oversight of its procurement policy and the 150 or so people that work within that, supporting our clients across the Asia-Pacific region. I do look back to when I started working in procurement 38 years ago. It was much simpler. The answer would be no, it's not procurement, you can't do that. It's become a lot more complex for good reason. Last year we financed about $8 billion worth of infrastructure contracts. Last year was a slow, lowly year because of the tail of COVID and infrastructure investments. And when I first got this job 3 years ago as Chief Procurement Officer, I reflected what I wanted to leave behind. You know, a few fond memories from colleagues about the weird guy with bad teeth from England. But I actually focused in on sustainable procurement. How can I leave a model behind within ADB for use by our clients that delivers more in terms of sustainability? If you take the built environment as a whole, it's accountable for 35 to 40% of global emissions. It's a huge figure. You start looking within that and get depressed first off because of the scale of the challenge. But the two biggest cost components and carbon emission components in there are cement and steel, at around about 7-8% and 15%. Okay, environmental scientists will give you slightly different numbers. But I focused in on those two areas. And had you asked me 20 years ago whether I would be at a conference on steel, I would have said never. Last year, I was at a very similar conference on concrete in Bangkok because of the importance of those two materials in the built environment. ADB operates a procurement system very similar to the government of India's, to be honest, that follows economy, transparency, fairness, efficiency, quality as the guiding principles behind it. These align with the frameworks of all good public procurement systems, India included, of course. What we're looking at more is the total cost of ownership, whether that's in financial terms or social terms or environmental terms. I'm very pleased that we actually piloted the use of lower carbon cements in the Indian portfolio for ADB. It was already in the Indian market. I want to build upon that. And I'm looking with very, very keen interest at the work that Neha and her team and the ministry are doing on thinking about similar things for steel. Can we actually start including lower carbon steel, either with incentives in the evaluation to provide the manufacturers with incentives to produce it, or as we did with cement, actually specifying lower carbon cements. Low carbon cement is far easier and lower hanging fruit than steel because of the multiple ways that cement can be produced. Steel is a much, much bigger challenge, I agree, because of the much higher capex costs in its production. But there's other ways we can also look at it in terms of procurement. Instead of just saying, no, it's not a procurement issue, it's an engineering one, is think about, can we build in incentives to use lower carbon products? Can we offer incentives in the evaluation process to do that? And the answer is yes, we can, provided we can focus in on a taxonomy for the product, as I know is being done with steel, for example, has been done with cement. We're also working and coordinating with UNIDO on this as well, so we don't duplicate efforts. If we can get to globally accepted or regionally accepted or nationally accepted taxonomy on this, we can start measuring things. and we can start providing incentives in the evaluation and contracting and life cycle management processes to prioritize lower carbon materials. Whether that's steel, whether that's mass timber, whether that's concrete, whether that's eco-labeling of products. We can also start thinking about the disposal of the asset over its life. What's going to happen to it at the end? I know, for example, a challenge in India at the moment is identifying sufficient portions of scrap steel. But every new investment we make now, and have done recently in the last few years, has steel in it. So what's going to happen to that asset in 20 years' time when it reaches the end of its useful life? I'm thinking the same thing about solar panels. There are going to be billions of those solar panels reaching the end of their useful life year on year on year. What about reprocessing them? What about reusing some of the materials, and the polysilica and so forth that are embedded there? Same is true for steel. How is the asset going to get treated by the end of its useful life? And I'm actually really delighted. I met Neha at a sustainable procurement conference in Tokyo, run by ADB's institute there. And I'm delighted with the follow-up or return invitation to be here. These things, many years ago, from a procurement perspective, would not have been permitted in the policy. Now they have to be part of the policy. How do we make the process of procurement add value into the creation of the asset that the money is being lent for, whether that's being lent by ADB, whether that's being through budgetary funds from a national government, whether it's being lent by our sister agency, the World Bank, of course. How do we work together to ensure that procurement maximizes its positive impact? And of course, going broader than that, sustainable procurement isn't only about the environment, it's also about the economic sustainability. That will never go away. This is, we've got to pay real attention to the effective use of incredibly scarce resources. Also, social impact. How is it impacted upon the community by the project site, and how is it impacting upon the broader community across a country or a region? We do remain committed to making our operations more sustainable. We are aware, of course, of the political dialogue going on around this, but it's not scientific dialogue. It's primarily driven politically, not necessarily here. And we are constantly looking at ways to make what we're doing in terms of our investment lending, the procurement processes that turn that lending into tangible assets, to make it more sustainable from social, from environmental, and from economic perspectives. So very happy to be here, very interested in the questions, and listening to my peers at the table. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jeff. I think, as all of you have been hearing over the last couple of days, the Indian steel sector really needs a differentiated approach when it comes to financing. The secondary steel sector accounts for about 40% of the steel production. It remains highly emission intensive. But we have more near-term technology options that are more relevant for the secondary steel sector, and also they are more viable. But the challenges are the sector is more fragmented. You've got smaller, less credit-worthy actors, and you've got a plethora of technology to choose from, and you need to figure out which of these are really going to be the ones that are more promising. And so the role of a differentiated financing strategy is something I hope you'll keep in mind as we now shift to the next set of speakers. Let me bring in the first speaker. So this is where we start to focus more on financing. I'd like to invite Mr. Moez Sharif. He's lead energy specialist for India for the World Bank. So Moez, perhaps you can tell us a little bit about the World Bank's current plans for the hard-to-abate sector in general, and perhaps steel in particular. Thanks.
Thank you, Pradeep. Thank you for inviting the World Bank to this very important event. So yes, I'll focus my intervention on the greening of steel production in India, which I think is really in line with the government objectives of the overall greening and reduction of the carbon intensity of the economy. So as we all know, I mean, the infrastructure development is really poised for very fast growth in India, with more than 90% of that infrastructure, yet to be built. And this includes roads, airports, cities, power systems, and so on. So this is, it leads to a very fast growth in steel demand. Like, this year alone, we expect maybe 8 to 9% growth in steel demand. And as a result, India has become the second largest producer of crude steel in the world, with about 7% of the global production. As already mentioned, I mean, the difficulty is that in India, this steel production is very carbon intensive, and it's producing about 10% of the overall emissions of the sector. So let me talk very briefly about the challenges, facing the sector in this decarbonization effort, and I want to spend a lot more time talking about the opportunities, because I think there are many such opportunities. So I think we've all mentioned it. I mean, there is the issue of this carbon intensity. Clearly, about 85% of the steel production is based on the coal-based blast furnaces. So the average intensity of this production is higher than the global average, and there is also limited availability of scrap steel, right, for this production. This availability of scrap steel, its use is still around 20% maybe of the production, versus much higher rates in more developed economies. So also, I mean, if you wanted to decarbonize like in a very radical way, you may go towards like hydrogen-based technologies like direct reduced iron, or carbon capture, storage, and utilization, but these remain very expensive, right? The use of hydrogen in the production of steel would lead to maybe steel being 30 to 50% more expensive. So I think, this is why we perfectly understand and support the government approach of saying, let's have a gradual approach to the greening of steel. So let me turn to the opportunities, which are starting with the short term. So I think in terms of energy efficiency, there are still many opportunities. Using the best available technologies, you can probably cut the emissions by 20 to 25%. And I think this is the spirit of the government's green steel mission, if I understand it correctly. Then you have the kind of circular economy practices, right, which include the scaling up of scrap collection, recycling, and use, and this will lead to a reduction in the consumption of resources like coke, limestone, and water. Then, of course, you can increase the use of renewable energy in steel production, combined with electric arc furnace technology. And this is a very promising technological approach. I take, for example, the steel plant in Pune, which is using this electric arc furnace technology combined with 100% renewable energy and 70% recycled scrap. As a result, the steel is like, zero emission. Also, biochar is providing very interesting and has an important potential for reducing emissions. Additionally, so going back to the concept of using green hydrogen, you know, maybe it's not immediately, but for the future, I think this technology holds a lot of promise. So I think we should be supporting maybe pilot projects in this area in order to prepare the next kind of technological changes in the next 5 to 10 years. Then another important policy measure is creating incentives through carbon pricing and certification frameworks, which I understand is also very much on the mind of the government. And lastly, in line with what our colleagues at ADB mentioned, public procurement is a very, very important tool, and the use of, you know, public procurement for green steel for very large projects, I think, you know, is a very, will produce like an anchor demand that can really stimulate and kickstart this process. So I just, you know, want to end by saying that the World Bank Group is really supportive of this move towards green steel. We are engaging with all stakeholders, from the Ministry of Steel to the public and private sector producers, to support, you know, these investments in and policies for green steel production, and to provide sustainable financing, whether it's public sector, private sector, and especially mobilizing concessional resources, as we are doing with our colleagues from ADB, for example, mobilizing resources from the Clean Technology Fund and other such concessional sources of finance. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Moez. Let me now shift to Mr. Mangesh Soman, who's Chief Economist at JSW. I think from the perspective of a steel plant operator and a producer, perhaps if you could speak to some of your financing
Pradeep,
needs.
I want to come in here, right? Okay. So very quickly, just 1 minute. The session is on investment in steel sector. And my colleagues from multilateral development banks have reduced it to investment in green steel only, which is still at a very nascent stage. We have got massive investment needs in green steel and in not so green steel. And I will be very happy to listen the holistic perspective and not reduce it to this.
So we keep it, of course, a broader steel investment story itself. Yes, thank you. Yes, yes.
No, you have to speak very close to the mic.
Really close, yeah. Yeah.
Can we have a hand mic also here, please?
Yeah, thank you. So, on behalf of the steel industry, I think I'm glad that I'm trying to broaden the topic, as you are saying, to investing in steel, because as we have been discussing for last couple of days, there is a big increase in scale that we are looking at in the capacity, right? And this is driven by the demand side. So in the last 5 years, while the GDP grew by about 30%, India's steel consumption grew by 50%. So that's the kind of elasticity of steel that we have seen in the last 5 years, and this is a trend which is possibly going to continue for some time, because if we look at the experience of other countries at similar stage of per capita income and per capita steel consumption, then we are at a stage where this growth will be phenomenal. And this investment will of course be huge. So some very ballpark figures, if we have to move from, let's say, 200 million tons to 500 million tons, the investment for that itself could be somewhere in the range of $250 to $300 billion. I mean, very ballpark numbers. And then you add to that the other aspects. Because I think what's happening right now is that steel industry, the basic investment case comes from the fact that demand is going to grow multifold, and Indian industry has to cater to that because we have to make in India. It's a critical industry for which we can't depend on the external world, and we have the lot of endowments in India that are required for steel production. So we are focusing on domestically serving this requirement of steel. So for that, we need to invest in the capacity. And along with that, there are, I think, 3 facets that are important, or you can call them sub-themes, which are again equally important. So one is decarbonization, of course, which we have been discussing, which requires a lot of investment. Second is the value addition and value-added products. So the steel industry also needs to continuously invest into developing, value-added products to meet or align with the journeys of our consuming industry, their own decarbonization journey or their lightweighting journey, for instance. That requires a lot of investment into product upgradation and serving the markets. And the third aspect is the raw material security and the logistics. So those are, I think, 3 sub-themes which are equally important. And if we have to forge the financial success, then I think the steel industry has to keep its focus on its main theme as well as sub-themes, and in a very balanced manner. So depending on how the technologies, so in the decarbonization, there are some technologies which are proven today, and some are possibly, technologies for the future which will come into prominence in future. So one, I think the good aspect, the track record, if you see, of the industry, last few years we have been investing about, on an average, 50 to 60,000 crores a year. And it's the implementation has been pretty good, so there is a good track record there. Of course, the challenge is in terms of the scale, because the numbers that we are talking about are huge. And also, I think everyone in the industry as well as the stakeholders need to remember that the long-term potential is very strong, but it has to go through cyclical ups and downs. So that's the feature of the steel industry. And we'll have to actually manage the cycles well so that our longer-term goals are in track. Therefore, the risk management, having a balanced approach to all these themes of investment, and then, of course, the support from other stakeholders to having a similar longer-term approach. Be it the financial institutions, multilateral financial institutions, they have to understand that it's a longer-term game that we are playing, and we have to play it accordingly. So if all of those things fall in place, then I'm sure that we'll be able to, based on our past track record, we'll be able to meet these challenging numbers that we are looking at. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think, look, that's a really good reminder that we're trying to solve for multiple problems all at once. Firstly, we need to increase the scale of steel production in the country, as we've all been hearing. It also has to be affordable. It has to be globally competitive. And we also need to, over decades, decarbonize the sector in line with national mandates. So I think that's a nice reminder that we have to sort of keep the larger goals in mind at all times. Let me move to Mr. Alok Chand, Vice President, Enviropol Engineers. You'll have to get closer to the mic. It's really...
Yeah, I'm from Enviropol Engineers. My company is all about air pollution control. Okay, we have been talking about carbon capture, etc. What we are not talking about here is the other sources of pollution, which is equally important. If we talk about the particulate emission, if we talk about the SOx emission, if we talk about the NOx emission, the industry is not at all discussing about the other sources of pollution which are existing in the present 150 million ton capacity that we have in India. Of course, we all know that that is a perception, at least, that these pollution control systems, etc., is not contributing to the revenue, right? That's all right, but still, to make the world a better place, we need to think about it. We need to think about creating certain values in these air pollution control systems so that it can be revenue generating to some extent. We are very much passionate as a company, Enviropol Engineers. We are extremely passionate about controlling the pollution. We truly believe that, pollution is, of course, inevitable. but pollutant is not. And we have all the right to live in a pollution-free world. What we have been observing is not actually observing, but there has been a lot of talks about increasing the capacity in steel to 500 million tons. The existing 150 million tons do not have the adequate pollution control systems in place. We are emitting everywhere, and at the end of the day, somebody or the other is suffering. Of course, it's a slow suffering, but we all are suffering due to this. I will tell you one example which I came across recently. There was a company, there is a steel company, which was willing to invest in a desulfurization plant for their captive power plant because of the government pressure, of course. But they all of a sudden, they stopped it. They stopped the discussion because the deadline shifted by 2030. So actually speaking, people are not really concerned about investing in pollution control measures. I request all the prominent banks to come into picture and do their bit about it. Of course, CCUS and decarbonization is important, but equally and probably more important, at least in the short term, because CCUS, etc., will take a lot of time in order for it to be commercially viable. We are talking about including biochar, municipal solid waste, etc., as an alternative fuel, a blending of fuel to the main source of energy. These are going to increase the pollution problems further, because these are going to emit SOx, these are going to emit HCl, these are going to emit heavy metals, etc., into the atmosphere. So the pollution control systems have to be installed, and probably some technology transfer from European countries, Chinese countries, or Japanese countries, US companies may be very important. The main objective being if we can make it revenue generating. For example, SOx, if it is a proper system, we can generate good quality of gypsum by abatement of SOx. If we can have some policy in place for producing some byproducts, of course the company themselves will be having advantage, but we need a broader policy framework from the government in order to make it more viable and to increase the awareness of the pollution prevalent in the Indian steel industry. And my panelist also talked about 40% of the secondary steel, the steel making being done from the secondary steel producers. And let me tell you that these secondary steel producers are really in an unorganized sector, and they are not at all willing to invest in the pollution control systems. So when we talk about increasing the capacity of steel making, or to make the existing steel capacity to be more environmentally friendly, we have to think in terms of financing the pollution control systems also in the country. We have, as Enviropol, we have solutions.
Maybe in another 10 seconds, if we could just wrap it up.
So we as Enviropol have all these technologies to support the Indian steel industry. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So I think, look, the takeaway here is we need to be able to monetize some of these measures by creating byproducts, and then incentives are clearly everything, right? Going back to the regulatory.
Just very quick comment. So what we are right now hearing are the challenges where we need investment, but we also need to look into solutions. We are very keenly waiting for some enlightenment on solutions as well. So please keep this in mind and then deliver your address.
Yeah, let's. I think solutions. Let's move to Avada. Sri Deepak Agarwal. Perhaps you can tell us about some of the innovations that you're working on.
Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Thank you, and distinguished fellow speakers as well as all the delegates. I represent Avada Group. We are an energy transition company with businesses across the entire solar PV manufacturing chain. We are beneficiaries of PLI, so we started with cells and modules, but we have plants all the way to polysilicon. We are in renewable energy as one of the top 5 IPPs in the country across technologies, and also entered into storage in a big way, both through battery energy storage as well as long duration energy storage solutions.
We know about Avada, Mr. Agarwala. Please come to the point status.
So specifically to steel as a use case, we are willing to consider two options, because I don't see steel as only one single steel within the plant boundary. We have aspects of mining decarbonization, the logistics decarbonization, as well as the steel. So one way is to offer a RT-RTC solutions, I think, which is a reality in the next 3 years, because both the storage costs have come down significantly. So we have already entered into contracts where we can offer RE-RTC solutions. Second is the entire manufacturing of integrated green hydrogen and green ammonia as a fuel. So I think one of our first project is coming up in the state of Orissa, and Orissa being one of the largest producers and a dominant share in steel industry. I think one of the solution which I can recommend and suggest to the government is, just like SECI has recently tied up with Department of Fertilizers and running a world's largest green fertilizer contract, which is covering just 3% of the India's ammonia demand. So maybe if industry is so serious and we want to reduce the net zero emissions, can the Ministry of Steel tie up with SECI and come out with a green steel mandate, at least to start with a 5 million ton steel, can convert it into green steel in the next 4 years. That itself would mean just about 300,000 of hydrogen, green hydrogen production, and which is roughly around close to 10 gigawatts of RE, which is in the overall scheme of 100 gigawatt existing looks very small number. And for that, we don't need to do it in future, we can do it now, because if we run out with the tender this year, the plants would be up and ready in 2029, and we can start supplying green steel. Financing, especially the project financing, is not an issue. I think the financiers like SBI and all, they are all willing to support a nascent industry like green fuels. But what we clearly need is a long-term offtake. Without the long-term offtake, the entire talks of decarbonization will still just remain only at the discussion table.
Thank you, Deepak. If I could, thanks so much. I mean, you've highlighted the issues around project finance in terms of long-term offtake. But there are certain other innovations that we should be hearing from Mr. Yes, yeah, please, let's see if we will get there, don't worry. Would you like to moderate? Would you like to moderate? Okay. Let's move to SIDBI. I think, look, our understanding is you've been approved about 250 million from the Green Climate Fund. I think it'll be good to hear from SIDBI if you have any plans to support the secondary steel sector or the MSME sector broadly within the context. Sanjay,
thank you very much. Good afternoon. SIDBI is a development financial institution especially for the MSME sector. As we are discussing secondary steel sector, which is mostly unorganized sector, we can support any MSMEs by way of different kind of products, especially tailored for the need of the MSME sector, including the steel sector, which includes secondary steel sector. Now, definition of MSME has been revised by the Ministry of MSME. Investment in plant and machinery up to 125 crore can be classified as the MSME. So, the canvas has become very large. SIDBI has developed a very niche product for the MSME sector, whether it is project financing. SIDBI is willing to extend assistance for the project financing, for modernization, for energy efficiency. We are running special schemes. Some concessional funds are available with SIDBI with the help of multilateral and bilateral agencies. SIDBI has contracted special line of credit with KFW, AFD and GCF also, where we are extending assistance to the MSME sector at concessional funds. And besides the regular investment for energy efficiency, for decarbonization, as well as for taking up any like pollution control or any other activity which helps the steel sector in the growth, overall growth, and satisfying the increasing demand of the steel, SIDBI is a partner in extending financial assistance. 2-3 issues which MSMEs generally face is, one is collateral security. SIDBI operates a special scheme called Credit Guarantee Scheme with the help of the Ministry of MSME, under which collateral-free loan up to 10 crore, the limit has been increased from 2 to 5 and 5 to 10 crore. Collateral-free loan up to 10 crore is available under the Credit Guarantee Scheme. Without any collateral you can get for expansion, modernization, or any energy efficiency, or any kind of capex you can do. Second important scheme which I would like to brief here is that OPEX is also equally important. So steel is also a working capital intensive industry. We have schemes like trades platform where we can discount bill of the MSMEs on the trades platform, as well as GST Sahay, where we can extend assistance for the invoice financing for the MSMEs, and all these schemes are without any collateral security, without any third-party guarantee or any collateral security. SIDBI has automated its lending processes where assistance for MSME can be extended within couple of days without any collateral security, insisting on any collateral security, or even without much paperwork. SIDBI has been working with different stakeholders, which include multilateral agencies as well as different Ministry of Government of India, Ministry of Power, Ministry of Other, for decarbonization, for energy efficiency, for renewable energy also we are working. SIDBI can work with the different stakeholders, industry association, for formulate a specific or special products for emerging requirement of the steel sector in MSME. If any requirement is there, we can work with FICCI, we can work with CIO or any state level or industry level bodies to understand the need of the MSMEs and formulate specific product to help the sector in their overall growth journey. That's it at this point of time. If any question is there, I am willing to explain.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Sanjay ji. I think SIDBI does play a key role. If I could just make a slight change in the program. So Mr. Ashwini Kumar, Economic Advisor, he needs to leave for a meeting urgently. So if I could request him to please come in and provide some perspective from the ministry side. Thank you.
Thank you, Pradeep. So most of the points have been made. First thing first, we have massive investment requirements in steel sector. If we are looking at expansion of capacity to 300 million ton by 2030, we are looking at an investment requirement of what? 10 lakh crore, 10 trillion rupees by 2030 in 5 years' time. And that includes investment in green steel, investment in not so green steel. Most of the investment planning which has already been done is through blast furnace route. And I will request all the financial institutions, including the multilateral development banks, to not shut the window on them. And there are requirements of financing the investment needs. I know there is a thrust on decarbonization. Ministry of Steel is mindful of this, and we are more ambitious than anybody else. We have set very ambitious targets ourselves. But then I'll request both the steel industry and financial sector to work in close coordination to establish appropriate business models which have bankable cash flows and a very appropriate allocation of risks and effective management of investment risks has to be a part of this entire exercise. Steel is not a homogeneous sector, and I'm so glad that we have got a senior officer from SIDBI. Secondary steel sector has got its own requirements. I will request financial institutions to chip in a big way to help secondary steel sector. Particularly in the context of decarbonization and green transition, there are specific needs of secondary steel sector. And given the emphasis of my colleagues from multilateral development banks on decarbonization, I'll request the multilateral development banks to walk the talk, put in more money for investment in secondary steel sector. This will also require not only credit but a significant amount of grant so that they can come up to the level which make them come up with bankable projects. Project financing has to be a very important part of this entire canvas that we are looking at. And I will also request So there were concerns about social sustainability and so on and so forth. For example, steel has got a massive employment multiplier. Every direct job creates, the estimates show that every direct job in steel sector creates 6.8 indirect jobs. What better social sustainability example you can get from this sector? So there is absolutely no question about social sustainability and all those things. I know it for a fact that exposure of multilateral development banks to steel sector has been very minimal in India. They have been shying away from their responsibilities in the garb of environment and social risks and all those things. I'll request them to walk the talk, put more money on the table. GCF and GEF have been doing it through SIDBI. I'll request both World Bank, ADB, and BRICS NDB is not here, but I'll request all these development banks to put more money on the table for investment in steel sector, particularly in secondary steel sector. Best way to go about it is through SIDBI, because there has to be risk pooling. Pooled finance is the way for secondary steel sector. I'll also request World Bank colleague to ask their counterparts in IFC to chip in a bigger way for project financing to private firms, because in steel sector, most of the steel sector is in private private sector, and that is where IFC has a more important role to play. Steel sector has got plenty of projects ready, some of which have got potential of reducing carbon emissions also, but then I'll also be happy if you can give a better concessional rate of interest with moratorium on projects which have got potential of reducing carbon. Moratorium of at least 2 to 3 years, at least 2 years has to be there, because it's a long gestation period involving there. So these are my thoughts. I'm so glad that we are here. Thank you so much, Pradeep. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kumar.
May I request Arpan Gupta to facilitate Ashwini sir with the memento, please? Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Arpan sir.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Yeah. Thank you very much, and really good takeaway points in terms of the need for concessional financing. If I could just highlight a couple of points. As Moez mentioned, the ADB and the World Bank are working together with the Ministry of Finance of India to potentially bring in as much as $250 million of concessional money later this year. This is from the G7 funded climate investment funds. So these funds would be leveraged or blended with ADB and World Bank's own resources. So it could grow to as much as $1 billion or $1.5 billion in concessional financing for both public and private sector. This is looking at what we call the hard to abate sector. That includes steel as well. So if there are people in the room who have projects and proposals that you'd like to bring to both of us later in the year, please feel free to start that dialogue. And ADB is also working with the Green Climate Fund to set up what we're calling the India Green Climate Facility, Green Finance Facility, excuse me. So that's also going to be working with financial intermediaries such as SBI, SIDBI, IFCL, and so on, to finance a range of technologies and a range of sectors, including steel. So there will be, and there should be, a lot more concessional money entering the sector over the next 8 to 12 to 24 months. So project pipeline development should be on the minds of all of you. So I'm sorry about the change in plans, but we had to deal with exigencies. So if I could bring in Mr. Subodh Kunte from Prime Metals, perhaps if you could pick up from vendor financing and some of the more innovative ways to finance new technology development. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Though it is the last chance, probably I hope I still have the attention of the group. I represent Prime Metals Technologies, which is a MHI group company, and we are technology provider for the steel sector. So of course, we are not providing capital, or we are not the investors ourselves. But hearing about the requirement from the ministry, basically about the financing ideas, I could share some of my experiences briefly. Of course, there is direct financing, and there are investors as well as bankers present here, and they can share their ideas. But I, as a technology provider's representative, I can say that there is a lot of cost of project depending on what technology we select and how many new innovations or new changes in the available technologies we expect to have. That has a huge bearing on the cost. So Primetals can, help the steel producers as well as ministry to come out with most cost efficient, new greenfield projects, correct? Which will also be faster in implementation, because there will be some standard installation somewhere around the world. And also our experience is that outside of India, the projects are generally turned around in 2 to 3 years time. They are starting to produce, whereas the construction time in India is in the range of 5 to 7 years. So of course, that takes a lot of capital blockage. And if we can also improve our project management as well as planning capabilities, and if we could turn around our plans faster, I am sure there will be less pressure on capital. Correct? So these are the ideas I would highlight here, is that for financing, reducing the capital cost of the project and improving the efficiency of project management, I think that would help a lot in reducing the dependency on the debt. Correct? So with those two suggestions, of course vendor financing everybody knows, so that also is on top of the direct financing. So this is something I think some of the companies or most of the companies are already doing, but especially for India specific steel sector, I would suggest those two, reduction of capital as well as project management efficiency as two good ideas. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Sorry for crisscrossing across the room. It also keeps you all awake. If I could move to the largest commercial bank in the country, SBI, Mr. Munish Chandana. If you could give us a sense of what are SBI's plans for the steel sector?
Yeah, thanks. Am I audible?
A little bit more. You could get closer.
Is it better now?
Yes.
Okay. So I think what other speakers have told, I'll just continue from there. So steel, as we know, is one of the key high frequency indicators.
Can you hear him?
Is it better?
Yeah. We may need a handheld mic.
Okay. So, the way currently the demand is coming from, it's around 40% is from the real estate, around another 30% coming from the infra, and then engineering and packaging contributes 20%, and auto contributes around 10% of the demand which we have currently for domestic demand I'm talking about. And what we are seeing currently is most of the large steel manufacturers, the capacity utilization is above 75% currently. So there is a case for further capacity enhancement. Now, last 2-3 days we have been talking about the goal and national steel policy. By 2030, 300 million tons of capacity we are talking about. So currently 190 to 100 MTPA to 300, another 110 million tons we have to add in another 5 years. So as we know that around $1 billion is required for adding a million tons of capacity. So what we are talking about is another investment of around 110 billion dollars, which translates to around 8 to 10 lakh crore. Now where does that money come from? Currently the banking system is where the predominantly which is funding this. Typically the way domestic financial institutions or the domestic financing is happening is either by banks or from the debt capital market. We have to look at innovative ways also where the additional demand for this can be funded. And some of the things which I thought I can bring up here for discussion was ECBs is one of the things, external commercial borrowing is where some of the large players are able to do it, but it's not available for everyone. So that's one of the ways this can be tackled. Another one is ECAs, the export credit agencies are there. We have ECAs from Germany, Italy, Japan, which are funding this. And that's another way where the funding support can come up for this capacity enhancement. We do have a bond market in India, but what we require is tapping the international bond market. That also is something where the depth is there, and obviously that can also, I mean, what we need is blended financing structure rather than a single financing structure or over dependence on one set of financing mode. Then the export securitization can be another way which can be looked at, and I think is yet to come up in a big way. We can also look at the gift city, leverage that potential, because gift city, I think the withholding tax, the benefits which it offers is something, can be one of the potential financing ways to handle the requirement. And there are some other thoughts which are still, I mean, at the, I mean, we can discuss about that. Growing through collaborations is one, where a foreign partner can come in. Green financing and sustainability linked bonds are another one. Now, recently we have seen the DFI and NAFID being set up for the infra sector. So steel being in the core sector, that's excluded from there. Now, whether enhancing the scope can be one, or setting up another DFI for a core sector can be another solution we can look at. Because back in the days, decades back, when IDBI and ICICI were DFIs, looking at the ALM requirement, which we require for a steel industry, where more than 10 to 15 years of debt funding is required. And when you look at the banking system, typically the ALM from the banking system and what is required, though we are still one of the largest providers of credit and will continue to be the same. But that's something I think we can look at it. Then sovereign wealth fund can be another idea, which probably can be thought of and where they can come in. We have seen pension funds and insurance companies also coming in and lending for the large tenor or for something like capital intensive industry like steel, which is another thought process. Specifically coming from the banker's perspective, another thought which I had was what we are looking at currently is the balance sheet strength, the leverage, how is the balance sheet leverage. Then what kind of ratings are available, who is the promoter behind the scene, whether there is a capacity, because lot many times we see that the DCCO gets extended because of certain reasons beyond the control of the promoters, the money has to be brought in. So what kind of support structure or the backup structure is available. So these are some of the thoughts I thought I mean, can be useful, and we can further discuss on that.
Thank you very much. I think you highlighted a lot of different options. And a couple of things that you mentioned is a nice segue to the next panelist. You talked about essentially large-scale pension funds and the bond markets, rather than also long-term borrowing. So with that, maybe I can move to Rohit Sadaka, who is with Fitch India Ratings. Perhaps you can tell us about how the bond market could be a source of financing for the steel sector.
Yeah, thanks and good afternoon to everyone. So maybe I'll take some clues from what Mr. Chandana said, and since it's just the next speaker, I can leverage on some of the points. So Mr. Chandana also spoke about the balance sheet strength and the credit rating. So if I take a clue, if you look at the steel sector, domestic steel sector has been at a better position as compared to maybe other countries. The reason being, we are more dependent on the domestic steel demand and not a export oriented steel industry, which maybe countries like China, Japan and Korea are dependent on the global demand. Saying that, we are not insulated, because if the global steel industry is facing headwinds, it impacts the pricing, because India becomes a choice for dumping steel, and it impacts the profitability and cash flow for the domestic steel player, and which impacts the capacity addition strategies or the decision making. But what we have seen recently, that since India is more dependent on the domestic steel demand and capacity, there has been a matching, I would say, if the amount of steel capacity we are adding, that has been getting absorbed by the domestic steel demand. So what that has led to in the last say 8 or 9 years is the balance sheet of the domestic steel players have become strengthened, and the leverage at the balance sheet is comfortable as compared to what we have seen in, say, 2014-15, when there was a steel dumping from China, and we have seen a lot of bad asset and a lot of funds got stuck. But post that, what we have seen, there's a calibration between the steel demand and the capacity. So that is a good point, and the ability of the steel players have increased because of the balance sheet strength. Now moving on to the bond market and other things, I think the availability of bond funding for steel sector is limited to some of the large players, because the secondary steel player and the some of the mid-sized players, they are not getting exposure to the bond market because it is not that matured in India. That is one thing. If we develop that maturity in the bond market and get that access to the mid-corporates, mid-sized steel players and the secondary steel player, that could be one of the reasons. As steel is a long gestation or the long cashback payback industry, you need a long tenor debt, maybe for 10 years or something, which is not available. Most of the secondary players are dependent on the domestic bank funding. So that is one area which can be looked at and developed. Secondly, the international, when we come to green steel or the sustainability steel, the investment in that, I think the green bond and the sustainability bond, where most of the international institutions are favoring, or they have some fund allocated, that could be tapped. But then again, it will be restricted to largely the large players. Maybe the small players will not have that access in the initial period till that green steel economic viability is established, which may take some time, because currently with the cost of hydrogen, it is not economically viable for most of the players. Maybe players who are exporting to Europe, which is going to come up with the CBAM tax from January 26, they will have some advantage or some mitigation in the cost, because they will not be taxed if they produce a green steel and the low carbon emission. There they will be able to, say, mitigate some of the cost. High cost hydrogen could be absorbed. But for making a green steel from high cost hydrogen and consuming in India, it may not be a cash flow lucrative. So maybe the players will not be investing in a big scale, but it is a long journey. So maybe over the period when the cost of hydrogen is kind of reduced, maybe that will be the time when maybe the cost of hydrogen comes to around $2 or $1 per kg, then it will be viable for the steel industry. So till that time, I think the long tenor bond market for secondary steel and green bond and sustainability bond for the large players who are investing in green steel could be a good options to support. And otherwise, the balance sheet strength of the steel industry is good, and they are generating cash flows. So that should also be looked at, as it is a volatile industry, and the cash flows or the profits are highly volatile. Maybe the tenor has reduced to 1 or 2 years. Now we see down cycle and up cycle in at 1 or 2 year. Earlier it used to be 4 year, 5 year. So you have to be very careful. If you are investing at a high cycle or the peak of the cycle, then the cash flows, when you draw the projections or understand the cash available for making the repayments, you should not take the peak of the cycle cash, but should look at them through the cycle approach, which helps you in mitigating the high cycle and low cycle cash flows, and ensure that the cash, the repayments are secured, and the assets, you don't end up in the bad assets. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I think you've laid out a couple of good sort of insights. Appreciate that. We are coming to the end of the session, but all of you have been extremely patient, and I know we're between lunch. And but I think let's take 1 or 2 questions, but please make it very pointed, or a comment. Yeah, I have just a minute.
Because Mr. Kumar referred to the, I mean that support by the bank to the secondary steel sector. Yep. And Chandra-san referred to that loan by the ECA loan by the Japanese bank, JBIC. I would like to share my experience. If government, not the bank, he requests to the bank, but government give us that sovereign guarantee by the government. Okay, JBIC loan can be extended on also to the secondary steel sector. Just would like to remind, there is no government guy, but I'd like to remind this point. Government can support.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, maybe just one more, and then, I'll bring it back.
Yeah, good afternoon. Can I?
Yes, please go ahead. And then the lady over there. I think you put your hand up, right?
Okay.
Okay, that's it. We'll stop with that. Thanks.
Yeah, very good afternoon. I'm A.K. Panda, ED Finance Steel Authority of India Limited, corporate office. Going forward, actually, we'll have a lot of investment plans for expansion as well as green steel and all that, decarbonization that we talked about. The main challenges will be the rate of interest, apart from the availability of resources. The rate of interest today, because international market is not very good, SOFR is running very high. That's the reason why the international interest rates are pretty high when you hedge it down to Indian rupees. So that is one. So we'll be looking forward to concessional resources along with the availability, as well as if vendor financing is possible at a very concessional rate. So these are the ones we are looking at so that we can take it forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Yep, the lady over there.
Hi, very basic question.
Please identify yourself.
I'm Trisha from Tata Steel. I'm not from the finance vertical, but my question is to Mr. Taylor and Mr. Sheriff. Given the Indian context and the technology maturity stages that we see right now, what are the kind of lending opportunities from the steel sector that are exciting the global banking sector and the lending agencies in your view right now, given you have a larger exposure to the global steel sector? What do you think excites you the most as a banking, as a lending agent?
Boys, go ahead. Let's hear from the World Bank and then I supplement.
Yes, so thank you for the question. So I think as we've heard, I mean, the technology that's the most mature is what, you know, some call the secondary steel, or the use of scrap, you know, together with the, you know, the electric process technology. I think that's kind of getting there. It's mature. It just needs a little bit, you know, it's not fully commercially viable, so that's why it needs a little bit of concessional financing to get that extra push and be there. I think for the hydrogen-based technologies, they're not quite there. Maybe I would see them maturing maybe in the next, let's say, about 5 years, and so they still need, you know, quite a bit of financial and concessional support at this point.
Sure, thanks.
Look, can I request Mr. Arpan Gupta, Director, FICCI? Actually, Arpan, I've got two requests for you. One is...
I have just one. Say, I'm Binay Kumar.
Okay, just know that you're standing between lunch and all these people. So please make it 1 minute.
Just a food for thought for you and World Bank, that is a multilateral. See, the aim is Viksit Bharat and world-class infrastructure. And as Mr. Chandana told, that 70% of the steel is going for the infrastructure and building.
Right.
So if a steel is used for the building or infrastructure, so it will be like a green infrastructure, green building, green energy, like windmill and solar energy. So my request is that you think in that perspective, that there is a need to increase the use of the steel. And that's why for the green infrastructure, green economy, you should promote the steel and you should start lending the steel sector. That is my request.
Thank you. Thank you. Arpan, go ahead.
Sure. Thank you, Pradeep. I hope I am audible. Distinguished delegates, esteemed participants, and valued stakeholders, panelists on the dais, as we conclude this insightful roundtable interaction focused on the financing part of the Indian steel industry, I express my sincere gratitude to all for their active participation and valuable contributions. We heard insightful perspectives which underscore the one central key message, which is mobilizing capital effectively is fundamental to unlocking the next wave of growth in India's steel sector. We heard around building, when we are talking about building capacities, we need finance. We heard about 10 lakh crores or something on those lines to be required. All the more, the need would be in terms of when we are talking about green factories, the green finance. The challenges that we heard today is in terms of the availability of the capital, where will this 10 lakh crore will come from. We also heard about the lower interest rates, the rate at which are they being, currently being offered. And we also heard around the challenges of the collateral securities. I am sure Ministry of Steel, when they set the tone for this interaction, highlighting the push towards the ecosystem which involves policies, fiscal incentives, as well as the large-scale infrastructure investments, they are taking a note of all the challenges, and we, along with the industry stakeholders, and associations, all the stakeholders are collectively working to resolve these issues around financing of the India's next steel growth. Our colleagues from ADB, World Bank, they reinforce on the subject of de-risking investments, ensuring access to long-term finance, and aligning capital flows with India's green transitional objectives. Also, during the interaction, we heard from the participants ranging from the need of project clarity on project pipelines, long-term predictability, and ease of doing business. Participants emphasized the steel industry's capital-intensive nature, requiring new forms of financing innovation to support decarbonization and digitalization. We also explored how the government's unprecedented capital expenditure is driving steel demand through infrastructure and supporting the growth, which will ultimately fuel the capacity build-up, ultimately leading to the financial requirements of the industry. As we conclude today's session, I thank all the participants, but there is one thing which is coming out very evidently, which is that financing gap in the steel sector is not just about mobilizing content capital. It is also about aligning finance, aligning policies and innovative models so that all the stakeholders are equally taken care of, be it the ISPs, the primary players or the secondary players. As an industry body, we at FICCI remain committed to supporting the growth of the sector, bridging the financial requirements. Through our committees on mining and steel, we continue to engage with government officials, industry leaders, and create forums like this for collaboration, innovation, and financing the requirements. FICCI remains your steadfast partners in this journey towards making India a global steel powerhouse, contributing significantly to Viksit Bharat at 2047. On behalf of FICCI, I thank all the government officials, the panelists out here, the dignitaries, the participants for their continued support, guidance to this sector. I extend my deepest appreciation to all the speakers and the participants. And also, since this being the last session or the roundtable for the India Steel 2025, so I will just take another 2 minutes or a couple of minutes for one, thanking the Ministry of Steel for providing FICCI an opportunity to organize this platform for the industry stakeholders, and also guiding us throughout the 4 or 5 months of execution that has taken us in the last this thing for India Steel 2025. I would also like to convey my regards to the industry, especially in terms of the our chair, Steel Committee Chair, Sri Armindu Prakashji from SAIL, our Mining Committee Chair from NMDC, Mr. Amitabh Mukherjee, who have been a very guiding force for the execution of the programs. Also taking the opportunity to thank our partners, exhibitors, knowledge partners, delegates, participants who have made this program really successful, all the panelists, all the speakers who have been there with us, and the session partners who have been working day in, day out with us on this program. Thank you, thanking the media and thanking everyone, thanking all present in this house. I take this opportunity to invite you for the next edition in 2027. Thank you everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much to FICCI. And Arpan, if I could request you, I think that if you could present a memento to Jeff Taylor, please. Thanks. It's a big block of steel. No, it's not. Wait, Jeff, you got to get a picture of this. Indian steel. Indian steel. Indian steel made of steel. Yeah, made for life. Well, thank you all. This brings the session to an end. You've been a fantastic audience, and yep, have a good weekend ahead.
No, I'm based in Manila at our headquarters.